kids are a magical little species. They're full of wonder, full of eternal optimism. I've always loved how brutally honest kids are and can be, and how unfiltered, how real and authentic. And I don't particularly like being on the receiving end of their brutal honesty, but I've always appreciated that about kids, and it's made me a fan for as long as I can remember. I've often preferred being around children to adults because of the honesty, because they just say it like it is. And I realized when I became a parent that I never heard anybody be brutally honest or even remotely honest about what parenting was really like. I heard the beautiful things. I heard and bought into the fact that parenting was blissful and beautiful. And it looked like family photos, portraits, edited versions of what it was really like. And when I had my own kids, I wondered what happened to every every adult I'd ever known who had become a parent. What happened to their inner child and that brutal honesty? Because parenting is hard and it can be very annoying. It can be very frustrating. It can be extremely scary. For me, parenting has brought out more emotions than I ever knew I had the capacity to feel, both on both extremes, both in a good way and in a bad way. And I'm Nikki Lynn Chase, and this is my podcast, Adult Chicken, and it's about navigating life's unexpected as a single mom to two special needs kids. I've had to get very selective about who I ask about what parenting's like because, as I mentioned, I haven't found a lot of parents who have been honest about what it's like. And I found good company in those that will just be real about how difficult it is, but how enjoyable it is. And also those who can laugh about what it's like. But I think if I wanted brutal honesty about what it was like to be a parent, I could have referenced my own childhood. I was that child that if parents or family could edit out or had the wherewithal to Photoshop, I probably would have been edited right out of family pictures. For one, I wasn't a very attractive kid, and for two, I definitely danced to my own beat, and I did what I wanted to do. I was a good kid in that I didn't do terribly awful things, but I was defiant and I did everything I was told I wasn't supposed to. I also came from a fairly conservative family, and I I was a tomboy, and I rocked this Dorothy Hamill, which was a cute haircut in the 80s. It wasn't cute, but it looked decent on some kids. She was an ice skater, and it was kind of a bowl cut. Mine looked like just a boy, and I was very tomboyish, and I wasn't purposely being progressive, but I looked like a boy, and I wanted to be a boy. I wanted to do the things that boys did. I wanted to uh, ride my bike, explore, and all of those things. And it actually was kind of embraced by my family in a way that I think it was like, well, I roll Nikki. She's Stanley now for a year or two, whatever. And one memory I have was when my mom was legitimately being a good mom and telling me, you can't go do your dirt digging Stanley day anymore at the ditch because the ditch is full of poison ivy now. It had become spring and everything had blossomed, and she gave me a very detailed description of what poison ivy looked like, and she told me I needed to stay out of the ditch. Well, I heard that I couldn't do something, and I was intrigued. I was very interested in what this poison ivy did, and she made it sound so horrible and terrible that I thought I better go check that out. So, back in the day, you could kind of ride your bike wherever you wanted to go, and I hopped on my bike with my Dorothy Hamill and my name tag that said Stanley, and I rode my bike to the ditch, and I found the leaves. I saw them. She gave me such a good description. I knew exactly what they were. So I picked some, and I started rubbing them all over my face. I rubbed them all over my eyes, my ears, my neck. Every inch of exposed skin I rubbed poison ivy onto. And nothing happened. I'm like, see, what do you know? You're a mom. A couple days later, I was so swollen. My whole body was oozing. My eyes were swollen shut. I had poison ivy for so long, and I had it so bad that it was a lesson learned. And I wasn't the fastest learner, and might be questionable if I too was special needs. So I get to junior high school and I'm kind of pigeonholed as not a very bright kid. And I don't think any of that had to do with rubbing poisonous ivy all over me on purpose. But I get to junior high school and I'm put in all the alternative classes, kind of what were known as the dumb kid classes. And at that time, I was also told by my mother it was time to babysit and to get a job. And so I did start babysitting. And although I wasn't maybe known as the brightest kid, I was a very responsible babysitter. Part of that was because I did read 1984 in middle school, and it scared the absolute shit out of me. And I thought everybody had nanny cams before nanny cams were ever even a thing. But I was an overachieving babysitter that everybody wanted to have watch their kids. I also was very immature and I loved playing with kids, so I was very entertaining and very into crafts, arts and crafts, and all of those exciting things that kids loved. And so I babysat. I babysat all through junior high school. I even went on to have my own day camp one summer when I was in high school, and it was called Very Important Small People. And I only lost one kid for about 20 minutes during a little outing up the street. And I think in that moment, I realized how quickly a child can just disappear and how terrifying and awful it was. Of course, I wasn't his mom, but my God, I was responsible for this child. And he vanished for a minute, and it was awful. And it was very eye-opening as to how quickly kids can move and change the beat in the day. And then I started getting sick of kids a little bit because I was kind of forced to babysit. It was something I did over the weekends. It was something I did during the evenings during the week. And it kept me out of trouble for sure. And it was an occupation at that time. And I had bills to pay, unlike most of my peers who were getting ready and getting their acceptance letters to college. So we get to my senior year, and I'm still in mostly alternative classes, aka the dumb kids classes. And I'm starting to worry about what the heck I'm going to do once I'm done with high school. And my mom's only ever suggested I could be a nanny. I could move on, move out, live with another family, and it's not what I wanted to do. At that time, my time as a babysitter had kind of expired. The novelty of kids had sort of worn off. I'd done it so much, and I'd missed out on a lot too. So one day, towards the end of my senior year, I get a letter in the mail, and it's addressed to me, and it's from the school, and it's an invitation to the academic awards ceremony. And I'm thinking, holy shit, Nikki, I'm invited to the academic awards ceremony. And I showed my mom, and I'm thinking, this is life-changing. I am invited to an academic awards ceremony. I've never gotten an academic award. I didn't do well in school. I kind of tried, not hard, but I'm getting invited. And she reads the letter and she said, "Oh, honey, this isn't for you. They must have accidentally sent this to you. You need to take this to the vice principal when you get to school tomorrow and let them know that you received somebody else's letter." Again, I wasn't the brightest thing, so I trusted what my mom had to say, and I was like, oh, well, that makes more sense, because why would I be invited to an academic awards ceremony? So lo and behold, I take the letter to the vice principal, and I said, hey, I got this in the mail, and my mom thinks that you probably made a mistake, and it's meant for another student. And he said, no, this is meant for you. You are to be there, and I expect you to be there and dress up. You're getting an award. And I thought, this is my ticket. This is my ticket to be done with babysitting. And I went to the award ceremony, and everybody got their awards. They got their scholarships. They got their calculators. Computers weren't quite a thing that they were handing out at that time, but everyone was getting their academic achievement awards. And I hadn't been called up, and I'm like, oh God, maybe they did make a mistake. And then towards the end, it was right before the valedictorian had gone up to receive their scholarship and vast awards for academics. And I hear this student hasn't been up here yet tonight. And I'm thinking, this is me, this is it. And I got an award for having the best attitude every day at school. And I thought, wow. I mean, I don't really know what that award is going to do for me, and it's not going to get me into school per se, or college, or continuing education, but it's got to do something for me. And what it did do for me was give me the confidence that I could do something more than babysit. I could be somebody else. And I was recognized at my school for having the best attitude. So fast forward to the year after I graduated, and it was up in the air. And I thought, oh, I was starting to work really hard. I figured out what I needed to do to get into college, and I did just that. I mentioned in a previous episode that I busted my ass to get into college, and there was no believing in Nikki that she could ever do it. And so once again, I was told I couldn't do something, and I did it. It took me 5 years to graduate, but I got a communications degree. And that's also known kind of as the degree for people who have no idea what they're going to do with a degree. But it's a degree nonetheless. And I got it. And I graduated, and I took my bachelor's in communications, and I moved to Southern California from Colorado. And I got myself a job as a bar cart girl. I took that degree and I went out and got myself a job as a bar cart girl on a golf course. And I loved it for a few months. And then I realized I didn't want my job after graduating from college to be that of feeding and quenching the thirst of golfers. There had to be more to why I spent all those grueling hours in lecture and went through all of the whole entire process of college. So I found out that that California was super desperate for teachers, and I only had to take a couple of tests, and I could become a substitute teacher. And I thought, you know what? It's been a while since I've babysat, and I think I'm ready to be around kids again. And I went and I got a job, and I got a job as a permanent substitute. And it wasn't my favorite. I mean, I loved the kids, but I started realizing how many kids were actually just complete and total assholes. And it was hard to be a substitute. That's when kids act the worst. And I'm like, I don't really like kids as much. Well, then I got a call that they were going to move me into a special ed classroom. And I got a permanent job for the rest of the year teaching 9 and 10-year-old special ed severely handicapped kids. And that's when I thought, oh my gosh, I had no idea what I was preparing myself for with my future, but I loved it. These were my kids. These were the ones I wanted to be with. Of course, it might have had something to do with all but two were nonverbal. But some of them had behaviors. Some of them had severe disabilities. But they were the most beautiful, intriguing, interesting, rewarding kids I had ever been around up until that point. And I loved every minute of it. And then it came to be summertime, and I had to reevaluate my life because I was so heartbroken that I wasn't going to see these kids, and it wouldn't be my class the following year, and I would change and I would get a whole different class. And it tugged on my heartstrings. A lot of the kids that I had in that class didn't have great lives, and school was their sanctuary. And I had no control over that. So selfishly, I couldn't quite digest the fact that I had no control, and I couldn't take each and every one of these kids home with me and raise them or help them out. And then there was the lack of pay and the bureaucracy. And I thought, I don't want to be a teacher. I don't ever want to teach kids. I don't want to end up with a typical classroom and the brats and the shit I saw. I didn't want to see that. I didn't want to be around it. So I take a little hiatus from kids after teaching. And I was kind of burnt out, to be honest with you. And I did everything but spend any time with kids. I bartended, I was in retail, I was a cocktail waitress, you name it. I kind of did everything. And then it was time I started thinking I was ready to have my own family, kids of my own. And I actually went back to babysitting for a little bit and I couldn't believe it. Here I was in my late 20s. I'm pregnant with my first child. It was a good gig because I could bring her with me. And I was just working for individual families who were just super awesome, kind of looking to their parents at different parenting like ways and picking up on things, giving myself some tools for what I was about to experience. And I kind of paused at one point and thought, oh shit, I'm a babysitter again. I'm in my late 20s. I've got a college degree and I'm babysitting again. What if my mother was right and I'm the forever babysitter? I'm just going to be a perpetual professional babysitter. Bootsy came along, and once I realized things were a little bit awry with her development, I once again had to kind of stay clear of being around other kids, mostly other parents of kids, because I didn't like the competition. I didn't like how parents were trying to continue buying into the bullshit of what it was like to be a parent, and parenting is perfection. So I made a little exit and ended up with a job as a creative director. So I was finally using my degree to some extent, and I was away from kids, but dealing with what I had going on with Bootsy. Well, then enter Sandler, and Sandler made me realize how scary being a mom could be, and how terrifying, and how you don't even think about what you're doing. You just the parental instincts just took over, and honestly, most of his being a baby is a complete blur. I don't remember most of it because it was so traumatic, and it was something every day. I was finding out something new and different with his medical stuff. And the thing I do remember the most, and it involved both kids, and it was he was we were called back to the hospital for a bit of an extended stay, and it was not for anything serious. It was just jaundice. And I had gone home, and I had Bootsy, and even though I was married, I was still a single parent, more or less. At this point, my marriage is dissolving, and I'm already doing two special needs kids on my own, and I'm talking about the first day out of the hospital. So we get home, and I get the call that we need to go back. So I run upstairs to pack a bag, and I leave Bootsy and Sandler downstairs. I mean, he's literally just a couple of days old. And I come downstairs, and I'm halfway way down, and I can see her, and she's holding her baby brother, and she's got him completely upside down. I mean, he's hooked up to oxygen, and she's holding him by his feet upside down. She's trying to be this big sister, this new big sister. And my heart stopped. And this feeling of you need to be calm so she doesn't drop him on his head came over me. And I was very calm. And I said, look at you, big sister. Now let's quietly and carefully put him down. Let me take him. And I walked very slowly and quietly. And I just remember feeling as panicked as I could possibly feel, and knowing that, my God, if she drops the baby, that's not going to go well. And I kind of thinking, my God, kids they're not intentionally stupid, but my God, I couldn't believe how easily something terrible and awful could have happened. And then the what ifs started entering my mind. And I thought, oh my God, this is going to be difficult. Well, fortunately, but unfortunately, all the medical stuff started taking over the fear factor in parenting with Sandler. Well, fast forward to us relocating to Washington. And I literally barely remember that. Parental amnesia comes in, and I don't remember most of it. If I'm reminded, if somebody tells me the story about what reminds me what I went through, I think, holy cow, but it seems like a different person. It seems like an out of body experience. The important thing was to get my kids out safely, get me safe so I could continue to care for my children. I was running on survival and adrenaline and fear. And it's amazing how much you forget you're going through, or how much effort it takes. Actually, it takes a lot less effort, I think, because you're not thinking about what you're doing. I certainly wasn't. I was just going, and the operative goal was to get everybody healthy and safe. So I kind of had the luxury when we ran away from Colorado to completely forget about all the things I was fearful of, and absorbed in thinking about all the things my kids would miss out on because they were special, and all the things that we would miss, or how different things would be. I didn't care. I didn't even think about it. All I thought about was their safety, their health, and their happiness. And that's all that matters. I got us established. I got us sort of settled. And the first thing was, of course, safety, and the fact that they were safe, I was safe, so I could take care of them. Second thing on the agenda when we relocated was make sure you establish all of their medical needs, of course. And second to that was getting our necessities met, food on the table, a roof over our head. And once we got all of that in, it was time to dial in some normalcy. And I thought the best way to get normalcy, of course, was to get them into school, Bootsy back into school, and Sandler starting school. So when I went to the district to enroll them in school, I realized how much my being a teacher had given me an education, a totally unexpected education in special ed. And so I got them enrolled in school, and Bootsy was comfortable. She'd already taken a bus to her preschool in first grade when we were in Colorado. And it was time to get Sandler on the bus. And Sandler didn't speak at the time, so he was a very expressive young man, and he had he had his own language. The three of us had our own language. Bootsy and I could understand what he was saying. Most people couldn't. And we had opted to not focus on sign language, because his speech therapist, before we had left Colorado, really believed that he was going to talk. And she said, let's hold off on sign language, because she wanted him. He was such a motivated little guy. We figured he'd be super motivated to speak. And if he had sign language as a backup, he'd probably just use that. So we opted not to speak in full sign, but he knew quite a bit of sign language. Most of it Bootsy had actually taught him, because she knew quite a bit of sign language. So Bootsy hops on the bus, and she goes to school, and it's time for Sandler, and he's not having it. He's angry. He's pissed, and all of a sudden the bus shows up, and oh my goodness, it's a short bus, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, this just really fits the stigma and the stereotype of a special needs kid, doesn't it? And I'm kind of laughing to myself, thinking, of course it's a short bus. And I get him on the bus, and at this point he's freaking out, and he's bawling, and he's crying. And he has to be harnessed in. So here's Sandler, just tears rolling down his eyes, and he does not want to go to school. And I have to harness him into the short bus. And I get off the bus, and I'm waving at him. I see the bus all the way to the end of the street. And there he is in the window, and he's licking the window, literally licking the window of the short bus. And he's flipping me off. And I remembered at that exact moment how proud I was of him, and how everything I ever imagined parenting to be was nothing. It didn't look anything like I had imagined. And it didn't matter, because my kid was being very appropriately expressive. And here was the kid that wasn't supposed to live. He wasn't supposed to walk or talk. If he did, and he couldn't have been louder. He couldn't have been more expressive. He couldn't have appropriately told me to go fuck myself anymore. Like, I don't want to go to school. And as that short bus drove away with my little window licking, bird flipping Sandler, I had an overwhelming feeling of just complete and total joy and pride. And then I realized how I'd let go of the stigma attached, because here was my kid, the special needs kid, licking the window of the short bus and flipping me off. And I couldn't have been more happy. I couldn't have been more proud. And I realized at that time I also had adapted to what it was like to be a parent for my kids. And it was time to give myself a bit of a break and take the pressure off to be a perfect parent, because there was no such thing. Just as there's no such thing as a perfect child, they're always going to interrupt every plan that you had made and drive you crazy, make you nuts. But the truth is, all that matters is they're healthy, happy, and thriving. Today's special edition is about my birthday girl, Bootsy. And it's the perfect example of parenting, because it showed me how quickly I could go from one emotion to the other emotion in about a millisecond. And I was furious. I was so angry at Bootsy. I don't even know what I was angry about, but she was in so much trouble. It was probably the most trouble she'd ever been in. And we were in the car and I was yelling and I was throwing out so many empty threats. And the one I kept throwing out there was, I'm going to send you to military school. Like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. You're going to military school. And from the back seat of the car, she asked the question, well, before you drop me off at military school, could you please take me to Rite Aid and get me some unicorn ice cream? And I went from being the angriest I'd ever been with her to just loving the absolute shit out of her. And I couldn't believe within a millisecond, I completely forgot what I was even mad about. I still to this day don't remember what I was angry about. All I remember is she had completely leveled me with one sentence, one question. And it was the carpe diem moment, okay, well, I mean, military school doesn't sound great, or maybe it sounds good. I don't know what it is, but before you drop me off, can we go get some Rite Aid unicorn ice cream? And I think it sums up what being a parent is about. You can feel so much. You can feel so much anger. You can feel so much excitement. You can feel so much joy. You can feel so many different feelings, and then within minutes you feel something totally different for that particular child or that particular incident. And that was my moment of thinking, wow, seeing perspective through the eyes of a child is very different. And my God, how quickly they can turn things around, and just that resilience. And in lieu of my favorite unicorn ice cream eating little birthday girl, Sandler, her brother, would like to wish her a happy birthday as an extra special edition.
Hi, my name is Channel Shay. Today's special edition go for my funeral sister, 2019. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Bootsy. Happy birthday to you. I mean more. 2019. You smell like a monkey. You look like one too. Happy birthday! Yay! You did it! Love you. Bye.
Next week, I'll be taking off to celebrate my daughter's 19th birthday. I have no idea how she's that old, and I'm old enough to have someone that old. But I'll be returning the following week for, of course, none other than the Father's Day episode. And he's as colorful as my mother. So tune in, like, follow, share, and subscribe. You can find me on adultchicken.com. Make sure to get the .com in there. You find a bunch of pictures of adult chickens. Also, I'm on Spotify, Apple Podcasts as Adult Chicken, and Instagram, adult_chicken, TikTok, adult_chicken, and also YouTube, Adult Chicken.